Digital Journal 43. So today should be a pretty concise week, I would say. We've had a lot of storms, man, here in Minneapolis, and it's been some tornadoes and some things going on, but we didn't lose power, so thank God for that. There was a couple positions that I posted in the chat or in the message board. One of them was a 100% remote position, and they got two positions. They got like a lead position, and then they got an app support position, but they're 100% remote. And they're really harping on AI. So those that, is really heavy in using the AI stuff, you might want to consider taking a look at that. They were looking at some of my experiences, and I told them I don't use AI a whole lot or whatever. It was a kind of position where I knew I don't think it would have been a fit for me. I might take a look at it anyway. But I found out more about that position with the health API, the health API stuff. I thought it was kind of similar to things that I was doing, but it looks like they're using test cases in Selenium. So it's through NTT Data. So NTT Data is a managed service company, much like TCS, much like HP and all those different places. So they got a permanent position through NTT Data, and they wanted somebody with GitHub, GitLab, or Jira. I have some of that experience, so I'm trying to find out what the rates are so I could post it for you guys as well. But I might take a look at it. We'll see what they got. And I went ahead and I did a broadcast for API. Also upcoming, there's a broadcast on gatekeeping our culture. A lot of that too, because you get into some of these environments and they represent everybody else's culture to the fullest extent, and they try to breeze past ours. And they're gonna do that, but you gotta sometimes you gotta kind of see who you're working with. Something very interesting that happened to me. I was having a discussion with a good brother, and I was talking about how, like, sometimes you gotta kind of mingle a little bit. Like I met one guy that I told y'all was telling me about app support and stuff, and he knows a bunch of people. And I talked to somebody else that knows two other people in areas that I might want to look at. And I said, well, he was like, man, that was a good thing. You got with the right people. So I said, well, let me look at that. Sometimes you don't have to always change positions. And if you're contracting, you want to start talking to certain people. But you don't always want to change, not positions, but change companies. You don't have to necessarily change companies. You can move around in different organizations. So it's good to kind of talk to people and see what they do. Now, I was a proponent of remote interviews because it saves time. You don't have to get up and go. Here's the thing that I want to tell y'all today, and I'll leave it at this. When you are doing a remote interview, unless the position's remote. Now, if the position's remote, it don't matter. But if you're doing a remote interview for an on-site position or a hybrid position, you do know you're going to have to go on site and deal with these folks at some point. You might want to go on site. I even got to the point where I wanted to meet the people because sometimes what these companies will do, especially with us, you'll just meet a few people. So you don't really get a vibe on how it's going to be. And sometimes you never know how it's going to be until you actually get in there, because they'll put the brave face on. And then once you get in there, now you feel like you're in the lion's den. You might want to, if they ask you, do you want to take it remote? Sometimes an employers like it when you say, hey, I want to come in, so you could come in and see what's going on. Who's at the front desk? Who's in this environment? Do you mind if I take a tour? I've asked that before. And there was a person that said no. Usually they'll acquiesce to that. especially if they got, they got time. They'll be like, oh, okay, he's being friendly. There's some banter here. A lot of times they'll just be like, yeah, you can meet this person, meet that person, and that's what you want. You want to see what kind of folks you're dealing with, because you're going to be with these people 8 hours a day. You're going to spend more time with these folks than your family. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes that's good to kind of get an idea. So you come on site. The last interview that I had to come on site. And it was a cool interview, but my manager at one point was remote. So that's something you might want to consider. If you're going to be on site a lot, go out there and check those folks out. I know you'd be like, well, I got to drive way out there and I may not like it or whatever the case may be. I'd rather be remote because you could sit there and you could kind of it's less time. People ain't wasting each other's time, right? You're not jumping in, putting gas, and you're doing all this kind of stuff. So it's easier remote. I get that. But if you're going to be on site with these folks, you might want to go in there and check the temperature. See if you even want to be there. You see what I'm saying? Because once you're in there, you're in there. So I try to do all the reconnaissance I can. Now, if you're contracting somewhere, you're already there. Just walk up to the floor and just start shaking hands and meeting people. Sometimes you just got to be bold like that. If you're trying to get in certain places or get certain information, you're going to have to talk. You're going to have to speak to people and ask questions. You're going to have to do that. That's what I did. I said, you know this person? Tell me more about this. You know anybody over here? You know anybody over there? Yeah, I know somebody. And not every environment is open where they just going to embrace you or just let you in or say, hey, don't talk to that person. Don't talk to that person. There's a lot of environments that's not like that. Some of them environments, they want to gatekeep their friends and their colleagues. They ain't trying to let you in. They only let certain people in. And y'all know what I'm talking about. But they only let certain folks in. So you may not be able to break down that wall unless you meet somebody within those parameters. It's like a drawbridge. Sometimes they'll keep the drawbridge up. So you have to kind of tunnel through the moat and walk around the castle. Sometimes you may not be able to get in at all. Especially if they got crossbows on the drawbridge on the castle, making sure you don't. Sometimes they'll do that too. I've seen it 1,000 times. But sometimes you may have to sneak through the castle. Just like if you remember Game of Thrones, when they were doing reconnaissance and surveillance. Remember when the imp was basically telling, this is how you get into Casterly Rock. You might have to pull a Casterly Rock. You might have to, or like I say, you could start off and then when you start asking questions, you could kind of tell the people that ain't gonna want to help you versus the ones that will. And that's key. So you start building up a portfolio of I don't like using that word ally loose because usually a lot of times it ain't a two-way street, but just for the sake of terms, you make alliances with people. They ain't got to necessarily be your friends, but you can make some alliances with some people. And your friends, if they become a friend, they're going to